Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Clarity Replay Showcase. Of course, as always, your casters will be myself, Word, and Zombie Grub, and this time it's going to be HoneyBear playing for the Clarity Gaming Academy versus Complexity Academy's Kaio.
Yeah, did they do this on purpose or just an actual ladder game?
I'm not sure. It seems a little bit too good to be true. Just kind
Right?
of this Academy war. If you guys didn't know, a little while ago, Clarity Gaming Academy did go up against Complexity Academy and did end up taking the win 5-4. So Kyle probably looking for some revenge here. Spawning in the lower right for Clarity Gaming Academy, he is the red Zerg player, HoneyBear.
And in the upper left, coming out for the Complexity Academy, it's the blue Protoss Kyo.
And it looks like HoneyBear and Kyo maybe have some history, maybe know each other. HoneyBear is certainly happy to greet his Protoss nemesis. But the map here is going to be Akilon Wastes. We're going to be, of course, a ZVP, PVZ, depending on which team you play for. Of course, it's always a PVZ in my eyes. But I have the feeling we're in for a long game. Akilon Wastes tends to lend itself to that macro.
That's very true, of course. Getting up to 3 bases not that hard for really either player. You usually see this if, a game is going to go long, it's kind of usually on this map.
That's true, and we are going to see Kyo opening up here with a pylon in the main base, so looking for a gateway expansion here. Of course, that can lead to very early aggression, and we'll see if he decides to go for that. But PVZ on Akilon Waste, yeah, like you said, early third base, you can hold it, you can take it, and then you can kind of go into really whatever kind of mid-game you want. Hydra Roach isn't terrible on this map as long as you are pretty active with your creep spread. Mutas have a lot of room to play, so if you're more of a Sky Zerg player, that's certainly a lot you can do, especially bouncing in between the third and the main. The Mutas can be very effective if the Protoss player hasn't gotten Blink.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And of course, on the Protoss side, you can always choose what tech you're going to go. Usually we see Colossus, but people have been trying to go into Sky Toss, which can be very hard to hold, even on such a map as Akilon, if they try and do that Roach Hydra Bus that you're talking about. That's where it's really effective. Before they have that max number of air toss and no Colossus to help out, that Roach Hydra Bus can really take a Protoss down.
That's true. That's the timing that a Protoss has to be very aware of. If a Protoss player is trying to open with Sky Toss, usually what they'll do is they will expand off of one gateway or a forge, get a Stargate immediately, usually around 6 minutes or even a little earlier, and usually either get 1 or 2 Void Rays before taking their third. It's a style that's especially popular on Akilon Waste because you can defend the third rather easily, and then they'll throw down 2 more Stargates, bringing them to a total of 3. So at that point, that's when the Zerg player is kind of on a timer. It's like, I'm either going to go with Roach Hydra and bust him now, or I need to tech switch immediately, because Roach Hydra starts to become ineffective once they get Colossi mixed in with a large number of Void Rays.
Exactly, and if it's not going to be Colossus, then it has to be Storms, like very, very well-placed Storms. So it usually comes much, much later, and then we see a war between Vipers and High Templar. Sometimes the way to deal with Sky Toss is actually very fast and very powerful tech switches, because you can get up to a lot of bases if they go for Void Ray, that Void Ray Sky Toss end composition, because they're not looking to end it in the mid-game. They're really kind of going into the late game with 3 to 4 bases. So if HoneyBear was up against that, he'd definitely try and expand all across the map, have enough of that money, have enough of that gas, really. That's where it comes into effect, and try and do multiple tech switches to really throw Kyo off. Now, we do see that the expansion has been confirmed by HoneyBear, I believe. Yes, it has, and he knows that there's a Cybernex core in there, so he also knows to expect maybe some aggression. We do see a Sentry out and a Mothership core, so it shouldn't be too much aggression. You could always go over there with a Mothership core and scout a little bit, but definitely have to be careful with it.
Yeah, and that's a very nice pick off there by the Zerglings for HoneyBear. It's going to delay the wall, and look at that, the pylon being forced to plant at the front. So on top of the supply block, and he's actually going to start getting on top of this sentry. Going to need to lay down a force field to save it.
Yeah,
might
maybe.
Still lose it.
Yeah, well, it found a nice little niche right there. It's gonna survive with the help of some probes too. So very key that he, kept that alive. Of course, he did not want to use that force field. Wants to always accumulate as much energy as possible on every single sentry you get, but definitely better than losing that sentry.
Yep, and look at this. He's already forced Kyo back onto the high ground. 2 gateways being laid at the top instead of at the bottom because he doesn't know if HoneyBear is making, 10 more Zerglings. And if he was, there's no way he'd be able to get a wall on the low ground. So he's forced to plant his infrastructure on the high ground and delay the protection of his expansion even more. Fortunately for Kyo, HoneyBear is able to drone up, but at the same time, that's a boon for the Zerg player.
Yeah, exactly. I just noticed that Kyo has not scouted at all in this game. He has no idea that 2 bases are even down, much less 3. No idea about the gas either. The gas has been continuously mining, so definitely going to be going up to that upgrade mid-game stage. And, it's unfortunate because usually you want to have that pylon on that low ground and then build the 3 gateways on the low ground and have a very nice wall down there. And like you said, he had to put it up on top, which it means his natural is very much undefended. Like, that's not what we usually see. It's usually the Protoss natural, that's where everything is, and now it's pretty barren.
Yeah, it's really going to slow down a lot of the game for him. If he wants to properly defend his natural, he needs to build a wall, which means the possibility of a fast third being taken is going to be that much slower. We do see a Twilight Council is down for Keo. HoneyBear actually darted in with the Overlord, saw it pretty much as soon as it was placed down, and it was a pretty fast Twilight Council, so it's likely going to be DTs.
Yeah, and there it goes. Now, did HoneyBear, or rather, did Keo see HoneyBear see that? I wasn't actually looking when you were, unfortunately, but he decided to do it anyways. You can definitely still, even if it is scouted, you can definitely still do damage with the DTs, but it's going to be a lot harder. Of course, HoneyBear needs to keep this in mind. Looks like no spores are coming down yet. Of course, he has a very huge timing before the Dark Shrine's ready, as well as, you know, the DTs actually being warped in. Looks like he's making a lot of lings. He's going to take advantage of the fact that there is no wall on the low ground. There will be a cannon, however, and that will definitely help, but a lot of probes should go down here.
Yeah, he's going to have to evacuate immediately. We are going to see a bunch of sentries warped in right away. The photon overcharge does go down. Good placement on those sentries. You didn't want to warp them right in the middle, so the lings are able to get them. And a sentry on the high ground will protect the main. And not losing too many probes. That's actually a really good force field placement.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that he got away with just, you know, nothing guarding and then warping in 3 sentries. That seems kind of, oh, that's a little scary. Now with the Banelings morphing, he's used up a lot of his force fields. He still has 2 more, which can definitely save most of his sentries, or his probe line. Going to warp in another one. Needs to have very key force fields here, though, because 12 Banelings, well, you know, with that said, the cannon's not going to run out anytime soon, so that's probably still going to be up when this attack hits.
Yeah, might be able to target down a couple Banelings, but like you said, the force fields are going to be key. He needs to stop those Banelings from getting in the mineral line, and there are a lot of them coming in. This is not going to be good for Keo if he's not able to hit those force fields. Immediately evacuating, force fielding in some probes, though.
Yeah, a little bit, but they did help the majority of the probes get out of there. Of course, mineral walking them past the Zergling, whatever was blocking there, and then force fielding it down. So not too many probe kills, only 6 going down so far, 7, potentially 8. Yep, 8 it is. Nexus looks like it might fall here. He doesn't have anything to defend except a bunch of DTs, and he's attacking Keo's, or HoneyBear's third, so it's going to be a base for a base, and I don't know who that favors right now.
And it's going to be a trade, and, you know, I feel like it's going to favor the Zerg at this point. We have... Well, actually, only 28 drones on the field, so still 37 harvesters, but of course that's a massive oversaturation. You're not getting the full potential in the main. It depends how quickly Keo is able to retrieve that Nexus, but of course the good thing about DTs on top of a Baneling-based game is you can really be aggressive with Archon, Zealots, and Sentries if you choose to.
Lings are brought back. He is going to clean up the DTs. Yep, cleans up both of them, but does lose that third. And like you said, he had to sacrifice a lot of economy to even do that attack that we saw. So the drones, it's currently 40 to 32. Of course, one of them, or both of them, are down by a base. But HoneyBear really did, you know, mean to kill a lot of probes on top of that Nexus. You know, maybe 15 of them. And instead he only got 9, 8... 9, yeah, so 9, which isn't great, but luckily that DT really surprised him, and I'm surprised by that because HoneyBear scouted that Twilight Council.
Yeah, Twilight Council scouted, not to mention complete map control in the favor of HoneyBear. So, you know, definitely what it should have been looking around with the lings for any pylons, and the wall just barely going to get up prior to the lings coming in here. Sentries will be able to deny that. This is kind of the position that Keo wanted to be in at the beginning of the game, but the early lings getting in there for HoneyBear really did slow that down. But now we are kind of seeing the game, well, essentially even out because the third is actually being taken pretty late here by HoneyBear.
Yeah, instead he's going for a 2-base Muta. In fact, not trying to go on 2-base, but ends up being 2-base. The DT is stopped right at the front with that nicely placed Spore. Of course, he made, unless he counted them, he made 3, I believe, so he has enough Spores to go around. Spire's about 35% done, exactly, I don't know. And the third looks like it's going to be taken by Keo right here, so he's definitely, I mean, we haven't seen a huge army yet. I mean, it's 12 minutes usually. In a regular game, you'd see a very huge Roach force and Wings of Liberty, for instance, coming forth, but now we just see a bunch of Lings and some sentries, you know, no really heavy hitters yet.
Yeah, nothing you're going to be able to bust with. It's just very defensive play. You can try to poke him with the lings, maybe get lucky with a run-by, but it's unlikely that Keo is going to let that happen. That's not something you want to count on, which is where these mutas are going to come into play for HoneyBear. Now that he's pinned his opponent back and forced him to spend a lot of gas on sentries, the mutas are going to be very effective because the limited income is going to have to be devoted toward cannons or blink for defense, and Keo does not want to spend that money.
No, he does not. War Prism is out, but, you know, mutas are about to, well, it's about to pop. The Phoenix did scout it just as it did. 7 mutas are going to be on the way. The War Prism will at least be able to drop the Zealots before it's attacked, but it's definitely not going to live for long. These Lings, I thought it was scouted, but these Lings are actually going towards Keo's base, but that's a full wall.
Yeah, not quite going to be able to get in there at all, and the Sentry's going to knock him away, so... Yeah, not really counting on the damage with the Lings, but the Mutas, it's gonna be good that Keo scouted that, but that is just a heart-sinking feeling to see a Spire finish just as soon as you have nothing to defend against it. We saw actually 3 Stargates being dropped immediately, and he's gonna try to use these Zealots to keep his opponent at home while he prepares for these Mutas, and it looks like it is gonna work for now.
Yep, keeping those mutas back gives him a lot more time to get out more stalkers, more cannons. Well, he's not actually placing either one of those down, but at least the Stargates will be up, so we'll be able to crank out those Phoenixes 3 at a time. So we were actually going into that Sky Toss that we're talking about. Looks like he found the Warp Prism. It's not that fast, even with the buff. It is going to go down. Or this is before the buff. Actually, I don't know.
I'm not actually sure. We'll have to see if another one gets out. It looked pretty speedy there,
Yeah,
but yeah.
good.
It looked like pretty fast. The Mutas, they did catch it because they're faster than pretty much everything except for a Phoenix. But speaking of which, yeah, 3 Phoenix at a time. Actually, the Warp Prism delayed it the perfect amount, and spending 600 minutes with the Zealots, but absolutely worth it because now he's going to be fully prepared for these Mutas. He shouldn't lose more than 5 probes as long as his Phoenixes are in position. They're kind of hovering over the natural.
Yeah, of course, he has to defend 3 naturals or 3 bases while they are relatively connected on Akilon. It's still kind of hard to do, especially with no cannons backing you up, so it could be definitely some Baneling bust at the front, for instance, bringing him over to the natural and then Muta swoop out of the third. Where do you divide your attention as a Protoss player? And that's why they like this map, because they don't really have to think so hard about that. It's really just 2 fronts, but with Mutas, you can definitely try and, get into that position where you just multitask your Protoss opponent.
Yeah, just gonna rely on your APM, your ability to control multiple fronts. And I also like this decision by HoneyBear, taking a 4th right away as he sees the Phoenixes. Oh, well, you're not going to be able to kill a base with Phoenixes. You can harass it, sure, but you're not moving out with that army. You need the Phoenixes at home to deny the Mutas just in case. And the Muta count is getting very scary. Looks to be 22 Mutas in this flock at the moment. And the Phoenixes will be able to deal with it, no problem, but they're still effectively containing Keo.
Yeah, definitely. +1 weapons is also on the way, so he's definitely going into Sky Toss, just starting off with those Phoenix and then probably building up later to Void Rays, which are really the scary composition towards that late game. Little Phoenix Muta battle going down. Of course, the Mutalist will lose majority of the time, needs to actually back off, and he does. Fleet Beacon's also coming down, so he's probably going to get that upgrade for them, let them really demolish the Muta player. And yes, that's what I was about to talk about. HoneyBear is doing what we were saying in the beginning against Sky Toss, which is, mass expanding. So if 5th does go down, he'll probably put most of his drones in gas. He's not going to go up to more than, 100 obviously, but he will get high up there, maybe like 85.
Yeah, really boost that economy while this Protoss player is busy massing up their Death Army. And then, by the time, hopefully, they decide to move out with that army, you're actually going to be capable of dealing with it. We see a lot of Spine Crawlers. Space control is so important, because normally, the late-game Protoss army, that SkyToss will have a few Templars mixed in. And if they can just walk across the map unimpeded by either Swarm Hosts or Spine Crawlers, it's a little bit too easy for the Templar to get in position. So that's a very important late-game build-up for HoneyBear.
Yeah. Phoenixes once again taking on these Mutas. There are a lot more Mutas than there are Phoenixes, 22 to 11, but with the upgrade about 50% done, they're definitely going to tear apart those Mutas. And HoneyBear really needs to start thinking about his next transition. He's getting the Aero Grubs continuously, which I think it's not just for the Mutalist, but for the inevitable Corruptor Swarm Host composition that we do see late game. Of course, he's getting the the pathogen glands on the parasite. So that's a little interesting. Looks like he's going to go in for Infestors and try and maybe trap the Phoenixes and then overrun his opponent with the Mutas that are still alive.
Yeah, that's going to be the best way to deal with the Phoenixes. I like that decision there. Of course, the Phoenix's best asset is its maneuverability. You lock it down, the Mutas will kill it very quickly. They have high DPS when they're in that flock. And I do see 8 Infestors coming out, but at the same time, you do have to be careful and be on point with those Fungals, because if the army for Protoss moves out, Phoenixes can lift those Infestors, make them useless, while the supporting army, the Void Rays, the Stalkers, the Sentries, can really just pretty much mutilate everything that's left. The Infestors are a really important support unit, but it's got to be able to get those spells off.
Yeah, it's really difficult to pull off sometimes. Of course, with the decreased damage and the increased time it takes for a fungal to actually go off, it makes it a lot more difficult to catch them. You're not going to have those spectacular, beautiful fungals that you saw in Wings of Liberty that always happen. Now they're actually a little rare, and it's going to take some really good micro from HoneyBear to actually get those.
Yep, and we're going to see the Lynx coming in for the 4th, but beautiful pylon placement, going to prevent a full surround by the Zerglings. Very nice there from Keo. Otherwise, even with a really strong army, if a Zerglings get a full surround in your Nexus, it usually does go down if it's morphing. So that's really interesting pylon placement. We are seeing HoneyBear going into full defense mode, 6 more spines being placed around his 4th, or rather 5th base over there. So he's locking down his half of the map. The creep spread is all the way up, actually going into the 3rd for Keo. So HoneyBear seems to have the map in control, but now the Phoenixes are moving out.
Yeah, does he even have a robo down for that portable observation? Yes he does. Or does not have an observer? Nope. Might need one just to keep the creep away.
Yeah, that's going to be key. And look at this. All the Phoenixes getting locked down. It took a couple fungals there, but those are beautiful trades. In fact, how many Phoenixes are left? Actually, just 2 Phoenixes left. The fleet was at about 10 or 12, I believe. Those are heavy losses. We do see it looks like a Warp Prism. It does have the... actually, does it have the speed upgrade? 2.95? Looks like it. And it is going to be warping in some units into the main.
Yeah, nice engagement going down with the Mutalisk while this is going on, although he has not warped anything yet. The Mutalisk do back off, so that's too much to handle, even with the 8 Infestors that he has. And that is a scary number, especially if Kyo clumps up, which is what the Protoss army naturally is inclined to do. This Warp Prism should be warping in something soon, whether it's a mass of Zealots or even morphing in some DTs. There's only one Spine or Spore Crawler, but no Spines in the main, which is questionable because he does have such good defense everywhere else.
Yeah, and it looks like the Muta's coming in to the third, going to get knocked away by the Phoenixes, just trying to dart and do damage anywhere they could. Now the Infestor's here to back them up. The Phoenixes have to be very careful around that. And I like the point you were talking about, the Robo, no Observer to clear this creep. That's something that, of course, Kyo's going to be very aware of, but HoneyBear's going to see that too. He's like, why is my creep this far? My opponent must not have an Observer. He's just going pure Sky Toss, and that'll be, very easy to try to counter.
Yeah, maybe getting some burrow action in here with those Infestors, really start pulling them apart as he tries to get to up to 5th base, for instance, which is the, one of the hardest things to get on Akilon, but 4 bases is usually definitely enough. But no burrow, he's not going for it, he's really just trying to go head on with these Mutalisk, which is, I'm surprised that he has not transferred out of it. He's really sticking to Mutalisk, and he hasn't gotten a second Spire. At this point, I would have loved to see a second Spire, and really, go heavy into those upgrades.
Yeah, it is an interesting decision here from HoneyBear, because usually when you see your opponent is pumping Stargates, or pumping Phoenixes off of multiple Stargates, Phoenixes counter Mutas pretty well, but HoneyBear comfortable with the mass Muta composition. As long as there's Infestors under them, you can deal with it, and it looks like he's going to engage this army over here. The Phoenix is not here, and the Fungal's going to lock down this army before it can retreat.
Good little chunk of that army there, and even another chunk going down. Of course, he's losing Mutalisk as this happened. Phoenix is coming from behind, but a nice Fungal takes them down. Does not last long enough to dilly-dally, though, and the Archons get underneath the Mutalisk. They do take out most of the Phoenix force, but they are down to 18. He's making 13 more, however, with that bank. He's really just lacking on the gas right now, but he needs to be very, very careful, as all those are red. Of course, they will regenerate very, very fast, but they do need to wait, regenerate, and get some more Mutas in there.
Yeah, and he certainly is. He's got 16 more Mutalisks on the way. A lot of minerals banked up, but of course it's the gas that's going to count when you're going for a mass Muta flock. And we see just the circle of defense around each Zerg base as the gas gets taken up to get saturated. And, well, this is a very interesting composition. I don't usually see this. Just kind of Archon Void Ray. The Void Ray numbers keep getting picked off a little bit on the way, so we can't really mass them up. And just constant Muta production. Nothing except Mutas and Infestors on the map now for HoneyBear.
In the main base, however, he just immediately takes out the Spore. He targeted the Overseers are making, whatever, but the DTs, they took down the Spire, they're taking down the Infestation, but they could go for anything else. The Overseers are just about to finish. Kyo needs to start splitting them up. He does. Fungal should go down, takes down no Infestors. One Infestor does go down. That wasn't actually that bad. He lost the tech structures, which is always hard. Needs to actually rebuild the Spire. He's only rebuilding the Infestation Pit. There he goes, puts on the Spire. But, it wasn't a lot of drone kills. He didn't take out the lair. So, it's not that bad for 6 DTs.
Yeah, that's very good, and I like that Kyo, usually when there's Mutas out on the map, you're just like, okay, I can't drop, that's kind of it. But, hold on, the Muta's going to be flying over here into the 5th base, but the army is there to greet them. But Akilon Wastes is still a very big map, and if the Mutas are on the other side, your Warp Prism, if it can sneak by, it can do some serious damage. So I like, Kyo being willing to take that chance.
Yeah, I mean, he was waiting there with a lot of DTs too, like he was waiting continuously, which is what I love to see. If you don't see an Overlord spotting that warp in, just continuously warp in, have like a giant army there, and then go in and really surprise them, but didn't quite happen. The hallucination, or not hallucination, that recall does go down in his 3rd base. HoneyBear thought he saw an opportunity, almost did, but a recall is very, very handy here, and that's another thing that I like coming out from Kyo, by the way, is that he keeps his Mothership Core alive, and he still utilizes it, even 26 minutes into the game.
Yeah, the recall is a very powerful tool, and that's what's going to stop you from really being fully contained by the Mutas. But at the same time, HoneyBear is fully aware that a recall is based on the mana, and with that second recall being knocked over, he can, at this point, just go right back to the 3rd, because he knows the army's not going to be able to get there, and Kyo's going to have to make a decision. Does he want to lose his 3rd base, go to try to defend it and lose a different base, or just push?
Yeah, that is inevitably the decision you want to make. As you can see, HoneyBear is taking in the map, so Kyo eventually has to choose. The Phoenix army is just a little too big for HoneyBear to take on, especially with that Phoenix upgrade. Goes back to a bunch of spores, and the army, it looks like he is deciding to go ahead and push out. He's done with this Muta nonsense.
Yeah, sick of being contained. The Nexuses or Nexi are down. There's a lot of cannons defending them. Does he actually see that hatchery? Okay, probably could just pick that one off right to the south of him. It looks like rather just not. Leaving the Phoenixes to defend against the Mutas, though. And, well, it was more of a shark mode push, but at 27 minutes into the game, that's not really what you're looking for.
Observer is finally out in the field, by the way. It is catching the Mutos, but it does die immediately thanks to that Overseer being there. Finally taking down these rocks. I was waiting for that. A nice fungal does capture 4. Oh, that is a great fungal.
Goodness.
Okay. There goes all the
Phoenixes. Those are done. Units lost tab now, really starting to show in the Zerg's favor. About 5,000, and these probes are completely undefended, so this base is going to go down. There's a decent bank for Kyo, but not really what you're looking for. At this point, you're not okay with losing probes.
All the infestors, however, went down, so that was 7 infestors that went down pretty much for free. Even forgot to fungal. He was too busy microing over at that 3rd. The main is also under attack. He could take down all the Stargates, which would be huge. I mean, Kyo's relying on it not only for the Phoenix count, but also just his army in general, so he's deciding to push out, not go back and save it. Of course, the Militia Corps does not have enough for recall. It does now if he chooses to do so, but it looks like he will not.
Yeah, we're seeing what Mutagames so often come to, which is a base race situation as the Protoss just kind of steamrolls through the front. The defense is not lasting long against the high damage output of the Void Ray. Meanwhile, the Muta is tearing up all of the production facilities, making sure that Kyo can't reinforce this army. That's what he has to go till to the end of the game.
Yeah, you could get the Spire. Why is he not getting the Spire? 15 more Spines are on the way. Of course, a base rage scenario rarely goes in favor of the Protoss, especially when, you know, HoneyBear has this entire map covered, even more Spines on the way. I mean, that 6th up in the upper right is just absolutely, it's a terror to get through. But Kyo looks like he's going to be losing this base race, but then again, eventually you have to attack with just plain old armies, and does Kyo have the better army right now?
Yeah, in a direct engagement, he might be doing pretty well, but a lot of it getting shaved off. Over at the 5th base is the Archons and Stalkers, kind of left alone, aren't enough to deal with the Mutaflock. The army finally forced to recall here for Kyo as he realizes he can't lose this base if he wants to hold on. Needs to engage the army head-on, does manage to pick off a couple of Mutas, but like you said, he did not get that Spire, and there is a huge bank for the Zerg.
Yeah, I mean, gas and minerals. And really the only thing he's missing now is Overlords, believe it or not. He's supply capped right now. Needs to make 4 more, and he is. Layer's also on the way. That was destroyed. I'm not sure where it's going. It's going at that natural 3rd, or the beginning 3rd, whatever you want to call it. HoneyBear going back into Kyo's 3rd, going to take out the Nexus, and Kyo left the game, I believe.
Yeah, pretty abrupt there. Definitely a lot of Protoss buildings left. Usually when you see it that sudden, it means the last building was destroyed, but... Well,
yeah.
You know, he was in a bad spot. He was down in army supply. He didn't really have the composition to deal with mass Muta. There were 2 Archons in there, but at that point, you're just kind of praying and hoping that the Zerg clumps up the Mutas. And, you know, any smart Zerg is not going to engage Archons like that.
Yeah, that was really abrupt. I was expecting, like, no more buildings on the field, and there definitely are.
Yeah, I'm still in the game here, and HoneyBear just tearing up all the buildings. Pretty happy in his victory. So there's a game that's going to go in favor of the Clarity Academy's HoneyBear. Just going for a very, very mass Muta Infestor play. Very interesting style, but it requires a lot of attention, a lot of control. And as we saw, you know, HoneyBear took it to the late game, but even then he lost all those Infestors just by 1 slip-up. So it's a dangerous style.
Yeah, maybe if Kyo did not go for that attack and instead just tried to recall ASAP as soon as he had 100 injury back home, he could have salvaged this game.
That's a very tough decision to make, but hopefully he'll get another chance playing a lot more ladder games, I am sure. But this is going to wrap up this edition of the Clarity Replay Showcase. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see all the excellent games from the Clarity Academy and 18 players. I've been Word. Observing for this, of course, has been Curran, our excellent observer, and casting with me is Zombie Grub. We'll see you at the next edition.